But we start this hour as US President Donald Trump has warned that he would very substantially raise tariffs on imports from India, potentially within the next 24 hours, citing New Delhi's continued purchase of Russian oil, a day after he announced on his social media platform Truth Social that he would be hiking duties on India. He has also said that upcoming tariffs on imported pharmaceuticals could go as high as 250% over the next 18 months, and added that he plans to unveil fresh duties on foreign semiconductors. Trump has said that India's high tariff rates on American goods remained a key sticking point in bilateral trade relations. Meanwhile, New Delhi has reportedly called the threat of additional tariffs unjustified and unreasonable, while the Kremlin responded strongly on Tuesday, labelling such US pressure tactics as illegitimate. Well, a big development coming from Donald Trump, a time frame being put on potential Indian tariffs. Joining us to discuss this big breaking news, Dr. Ajay Dua, a former Secretary of Commerce and a senior economist who's joining us live from New Delhi. Dr. Dua, thank you for your time. It seems strange that we've got here after so many meetings that took place between US officials and Indian officials. Of course, J.D. Vance meeting with Prime Minister Narendra Modi, and at that point it seemed a deal was close. Then 25% tariffs, then questions about India purchasing Russian oil, and now Trump saying that tariffs on Indian exports could be raised substantially within 24 hours. How did we get here?
Thank you very much for having me on the show. I think India has probably, I'm using the word probably very consciously, has rubbed President Trump rubbed him on a couple of issues. One, of course, has been denying that he had a role to play in bringing the ceasefire between India and Pakistan in their conflict in the month of May. Second, he also thinks that India has been actually buying far too much from Russia, defense equipment as well as oil. But if you look at it, these are not factually kind of justifiable. If we bought oil from Russia after the US sanctions had been imposed, we had consulted the United States. It wasn't done at their back. The US was convinced after considerable persuasion that yes, it might actually help the rest of the world, including the European Union and the US, if some oil was bought by by India. It will keep the prices, international prices, more stable than otherwise. Otherwise, the Gulf countries and to some extent the countries of Latin America would have benefited from it. They're also, let's recall, it wasn't Russia alone. Iran as well as Venezuela. We had already been, the world had been told they don't buy from there as well. So you were taking away a lot of oil from the international market by the US sanctions. So we didn't pay for it in dollars. Certainly, the dollar trade is controlled by the US banking institutions and by the US administration. The payments made by us have been in different currencies, including arranging, rubles, somewhere we have paid it in yens, those kind of currencies. And then to accuse India of buying defense items from Russia. And we've been doing that for 50 odd years, ever since the 62 war between India and China. Soon after that, we started to return to Russia, and we've been buying that 63 years ago. It's not today. And whatever items we bought are absolutely known to the US. The US has allowed, for instance, AVEX. The US allowed us. It didn't like it, but it did go along with us. And we didn't buy it just the other day. It's been there for quite some time. So now to say that we are financing the killing of terrorist, sorry, the killing
Sorry,
of
Dr. Dua,
Ukrainian.
I want to interject because I'm conscious of how much time we have left. There are a couple of more really important points that I want to touch on. Firstly, Donald Trump talking about India fueling the Russian war machine. Of course, he's mentioned that China are also a country that purchase Russian oil. That's aside from other Russian exports that the US and the EU still purchase. Why is Donald Trump particularly focusing on India and not looking at China for these sanctions within 24 hours?
This is what I fail to understand, that what is new, except our contradicting him on mediation with in bringing the ceasefire with Pakistan, which we talked about earlier. I don't think any of the developments for which India is being accused now, and hence going to attract penalties from the US, penalties which he had earlier talked of might be 500% and not probably a little less, but yet very substantive. It is something got as much to do with President Putin not listening to the United States President about the Ukraine war, stopping the Ukraine war. Earlier, see, on the Ukraine issue itself, that President Trump has wavered during the 6 months that he's been in power. Support Ukraine, not support Ukraine, now again start supporting. I'm hoping that President's Special Envoy, Mr. Witkoff, who has probably reached Moscow today and who's likely to be given an audience by the President,
Yes.
Putin, will be able to prevail upon the President or President Putin that, look, let's not talk about this deadline of 8th of 12 days. That's the 8th of August. By 8th of August, you should stop the war, or we will do this or that. See, sending two
Dr.
nuclear...
Dua, I really am conscious
Yeah.
of time and sorry to interject once again. I just want some insight from you, of course, because of your expertise. If higher tariffs come in, what will they affect? Is it across the board or will it be on specific sectors?
I think it's going to affect half of India's exports, about half of India's exports of currently at about $86 billion, because the other 45 or so stand exempted under Section 232, for which investigations have been ordered by President Trump himself to look at the semiconductor conductor contents and the implications for the US on the exports and the imports of those items. So for the time being, probably till the investigation is over, we are expecting that he won't levy any tariffs. But today he has said next week there might be a small tariff on that. No, there might be a tariff and pharmaceutical, which protects the US government, US insurance companies, which protects the US citizens by getting cheap generic medicines from China and India. He wishes to tax those as well. I think sum total of all that is happening and these tariffs is going to result in the US customer being the most affected party, because everything, tariffs on all the 50-odd countries are going to be ultimately paid by them.
Yes, Dr. Dua, we are unfortunately out of time, but thank you ever so much for your insight. Of course, this big breaking news is something we will continue to cover here on NewsX World.